Decade the Mad Imperial, right? Did I say it right?
Decade, the Mad Imperial.
Decade the Mad Imperial. All right, how did it start?
Well, it started actually back in my first group into music was Decade and BTE, which started in 1990, and basically, around that time, we were doing house music. Believe it or not, we was doing all types of house music and stuff. And my brother, B Danger, and I had another dancer named JoJo, and then I had another dancer named K-Rel. And we were doing our thing, and that's around the time everybody was doing that type of music. Even Onyx, Fred and there was a bunch of dancers. So, we went through that phase, but then, Run DMC kind of changed the game for us. You know what I'm saying? Because that was like the introduction to that other wall of hip hop, which led into the golden era. So once that happened, formed another group, which was Tongues Untied. I knew a guy named Sage. Well, actually, my brother, turned them on to me, and he was looking for a rapper. And at the time, my brother was still a dancer, and we basically started up with those guys, Tongues Untied. Sage left the group. Maybe some creative differences or whatever. Still love you, Sage, but then I had to go out and find a lyricist. I knew these cats named the Vizzies down in LES. They was doing their thing. They said, we got this cat, for my family, he's pretty good. Check him out. And we started doing that, Tongues Untied. My brother was still a dancer at the time. I had another dancer. This is around the time when you had like dancers like, Big Daddy Kane and all this other stuff. So then, after that, we was getting some airplay. We was bubbling a little bit, but unfortunately, my man AZ had some problems with the law. Had to go upstate. We had to shut that down. From that point, I was like, damn, you know what I'm saying? We was getting close to it and shit. And then my brother was like interested in being a lyricist, and at first I was like, but you're a dancer. But then, I thought about it, and I said, okay, let's do this thing. We're gonna do this brother act, and that's how Decade and the Wicked started.
Okay. When you say AZ, not AZ, Life's a Bitch AZ.
No, not Life's a Bitch AZ.
Oh, okay.
It was
Okay.
a dude named AZ. We call him AZ, the lyrical juggernaut. You know what I'm
Okay.
saying? But at that time, we were doing shows, and we didn't know who we was doing shows with. We was at the Lyricist Lounge. We was in the Cyphers with Wu-Tang and all those cats, Pumpkinhead, all those other guys. And we didn't know who they were. You know what I'm saying? So we was right there in all of it. Actually, we came close to getting a major deal. We was on the table, same table with Onyx, and they went with Onyx. So, I mean, that was cool and everything. But when we was doing Decade and the Wicked, what really happened was what gave us a lot of exposure. I'm not going to say this guy's name, but this is one of the cats that we got blacklisted basically back in the days. And the reason why we got blacklisted, we opened up for this act that was on this guy's label. And he had family members in this group. I'll just say that much. And Honeysuckle West, the famous Harlem Honeysuckle West, they did an open call for like an opening act for these guys because they were doing a record party for their release. And we beat out like maybe about 150 cats. It was like a, all called New York City thing, and we beat them all. At the time, those cats didn't, I guess they didn't take the time to see who was opening up for them. So we had the Source magazine there. We had all these hip hop magazines there, for this record party for those guys. And we were just an opening act, but we kind of destroyed them. We slayed it. I actually have on my site a little mini doc called Decade and the Wicked, the best it never was. And it's the actual show. And these guys, when we did our performance, they didn't want to follow us. They didn't want to come out there. And their stick was kind of horrorcore. And, they came out there with, Jason Mask and shit like that. And shit was kind of corny. So then after the show, instead of like the magazines come to talk to them, they all came to talk with us and stuff. And that rubbed the dude the wrong way. He went to my manager, put a freeze on our shit, gave him, like, I don't know, I think 30 stacks or something like that. We didn't know this until like years later. But, in hindsight, the dude took the money because he had a little fledgling label. And, he took that money because he knew that was guaranteed money. He didn't know he was going to make that type of dough off of us from the door. So he took the money and he ran. They shut us all down because at the time in New York City, and, like the people that's in the hip hop, they're going to know what I'm talking about. So I'm not even going to say any names. But you had to go through this guy. I don't care what label you was on because he monopolized the whole thing. It was hip hop. You got to go through this dude eventually. I don't care what label you on, because he had vested his stable. He didn't want anybody, having any competition with anybody that was like a certain artist on his label. Just like R&B at the time, the same thing. I don't care what kind of label he was on in the tri-state. You had to go through this guy eventually because he did the same thing with R&B. So that was the game. You know what I'm saying? So when we got on the shelf, they put us on the shelf, and we didn't know what was going on. We couldn't find our manager and all this other shit. We did out of that get we got a spot on the Apollo. You know what I'm saying? And at the time, I was like, man, I'm not getting on no amateur night, man. That's more bullshit. I'm better than that amateur night shit. So we did it anyway, and they set us up to fail. They had this guy who we all know now, and he's a big dude. I'm not gonna say any names, but if you look at my catalog, I did a song called Harvey Better Panic. And it's about that dude. Because like what happened was when they shut us down at the Apollo, you know what I'm saying? I was like, this is fucked up. We got set up. We was opening up for Fat Joe. We opened up for Dave Chappelle. We did a lot of shit. So what happened was me being naive at the time, I just said, man, good music is going to prevail. Fuck that. I'm just going to press my own shit, which I did.
Okay.
Press my own shit. And from that point on, we was like selling it out the trunk of my car and doing gigs up on the East Coast. Howard University was our last gig together as Decade in the Wicked. But we still couldn't get any avenues that we once had before all this shit went down. So once that happened, I kind of walked away from the music. And that was back when all that shit went down. I say it was around 95, 96. And I was just so discouraged about the whole thing, and I was all upset about it. I walked away from the music thing for a while. And it's a funny thing that happened because my brother stayed in it. He did a couple of internships with a couple of labels, and he was doing his thing trying to get in the conventional way. And at that point, I've settled down, got married, got a city job, and I was like, you know what? Let me just do this shit. And like I said, I'm gonna make my money this way. So I think back in 2008, 2009, with the internet, just bubbling with all types of stuff, out of curiosity, I just Googled up Decade in the Wicked. It came up. It was going nuts in Germany. We was getting a following that I was unaware, totally unaware of. And from that point, I started corresponding with cats overseas. And I got back into the game again. Prior to that, I love music so much. I think back in early 2000s, I was so upset with the hip hop game. I was just like, fuck it, let me just do music. I was in a rock band, you know what I mean? And we were doing shit like that, but it didn't fulfill me like the hip hop thing did. So eventually, I stepped away from that. But anyway, going back to the situation with me being online and stuff, I started corresponding with these cats. Corresponded with this guy named Simone Riggedy out of Germany. Corresponded with all these other cats, Mike Cole out of Canada. And they knew about me. And, which was really cool. And I eventually got a deal out of France, out of Surgeon Records. MacDo, what's up, MacDo? You know what I'm saying? Much respect. Gave me a shot, put the shit out there, and it kind of solidified everything, validated everything. And, you know, like I've been like going forward ever since.
How do you feel now coming back in the whole game? And you left for that little time. Do you feel a little bit more fulfilled now than you did before? Doing what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's like, you know, it's going to sound strange. I wouldn't have it any other way now because, like, back then, you know, you was getting all these 365 deals, 360 deals, and bullshit deals, and you was a puppet basically, you know. And a lot of cats didn't get their publishing and all this other stuff. And I was in circles with a lot of cats that it's no longer here, and I'm figuring if I would have got on back then, I might even be here now. And now that I'm doing what I'm doing now, I have total control. I have my own label. You know what I'm saying? I got distribution overseas. And, you know, like I'm making my money that way and I'm doing what I love without any kind of restrictions. Nobody's telling me what to do. And I put out what I want to put out when I want to put it out. And basically just for my fan base.
Okay. What were the influences that even got you started then? You came from dancing into music. What were the influences that influenced you to go from one to the other?
Well, like, you know, going back to the dancing thing, I was never really a dancer. It was my brother, and I utilized him like Big Daddy King would utilize his dancers. He was my hype dude. I've always been into music, you know what I'm saying? Because like I went to school for that, you know, I went downtown, you know, to learn how to play piano, music theory, and all that other stuff. So I was always into music. So I was always like a sponge. I like all types of music. You know, I grew up, you know, on, you know, Ohio Players and Earth, Wind and Fire and stuff like that. And when I was 10 years old, I went down south and I lived about 10 years down there. And then I started consuming all other genres of music, all types of music from rock and roll to, you know, classical, all types of stuff. And I'm like a sponge. I got influenced by a lot of cats. Anywhere, you can go anywhere from Jim Morrison from The Doors to, you know, Parliament Funkadelic. It's just like the range is, I took it all in.
Speak on the state of hip hop today compared to the Renaissance years.
It's garbage. I'm telling you, you know, and the thing about it is the blessing and the curse of technology, you know what I mean? Because like back in the days, I remember when you had to lug around 2-inch reels and, you know, you had to learn how to play and you had to know about, you know, bars and bridges and all that other stuff. Now all you have to do is push a button and basically use some kind of software, and it's no discipline to that. You can just, you know, a child can do those things. You know, you're a fingertip away from just making a generic beat that's adolescent, you know, and that's what it is. And once that happens, then people don't want to work that hard on their craft anymore. It becomes too easy. You know what I'm saying? That's why, you know, with hip hop, in sense of that music, you have a lot of cats that shouldn't even be in the game out there because the platform is there for everybody. So now, you know, you're competing against all the bullshit. And then now everybody wants to follow the leader. Everybody wants to sound like that formula. And once that happens, it becomes garbage because, like, you know, the innovator of it, you know, like, you know, he put it out there and it was good when he put it out there. But then when you have right behind him, you know, thousands of people trying to do that sound and stuff, you lose something. Because back in the days when in the golden era and stuff like that, it was all about individuality. It was all about, you know, having your own sound, and that's not existent now.
Would you say that the sound today is even considered hip hop? I mean, they call it that. Some call it that. Some don't call it that. Would you even say it's hip hop? I mean, I agree with everything you said. It's trash. It's too easy. Push of a button and you're done. But it doesn't seem like hip hop to me. Does that translate the same way for you?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like hip hop, but that's what they want to wrap around themselves with. They want to say that is hip hop. And like I said, you know, that's like me saying that, you know, like when I was doing the 90 golden era stuff, that I was doing R&B. You know, I'm not doing R&B. And it goes back to the millennials. You know, they want credit for what they do, but yet they want to hide behind what they do. And it's like you have stuff out there, and they put that label on it. They said they're hip hop. I don't really see it as hip hop, but this is coming from an older dude, and it may be hip hop. It just might be hip hop that took a left turn. You know what I mean? It's like they latched onto it initially, but then they broke off, and then they just start pushing buttons, and they start calling this hip hop, where in fact it took effort to make quality music. That's why people still listen to the 90s stuff. That's why it's still timeless. That's why people still listen to R&B from the Temptations to the Supremes, because it took work. It took creativity. You know, it took, you know, people to find themselves in that stuff to put that stuff out. Now everybody is a Xerox machine. They want to copy this and copy that. And, you know, that's where we are now, because you don't have any type of people that's doing anything that's influential. I can't even say the word. if you know, they're not influenced by people anymore. They just want to just like push a button and put the shit out.
Is Ancestors Cry the current project you have out now?
Well, you know, much respect to GPM, you know what I'm saying, Gorilla Pimp Media, you know what I'm saying, they shot that, my man Zeb, you know, they shot that for me, and I appreciate that. Ancestors Cry is what's out right now, my video that's out right now, and it's basically, I'm giving you subliminal messages. I'm letting you know about, we have unfinished work to do. You know, I look at my music as important in sense of dropping some science and giving you like these jewels that you take with you, you know, because like, you know, like I said, we tend to not, here in the States, we tend to not to even know our history, really know our history. And, you know, I'm just giving you information with a beat, basically. And that's what Ancestors Cry is about. And, you know, like, you know, it was doing well. It's on the compilation that I have, which is a body of work of like 20 years. It's like 20 tracks on there from 95 till now. And that's part of that as well.
So when you say this, it's a compilation of tracks years ago, are these songs that you did years ago and you put them together, or just ideas that you just recorded recently?
No, this is all my body of work, actually.
Wow,
This
okay.
is from the Decade and the Wicked days up until now. And I have I'm working on, a future project, another album, Euphoria. That's also going to have some stuff from the past, because, you know, I still have a lot of stuff, you know, on reels and stuff that I got to clean up and stuff like that, and just keep giving it that and sprinkle it with some new stuff. So, you know, that's what that's about. Also, I have two artists that I'm getting deals for overseas, and one of them is SUP, B Danger, Run the Assassin. You know, these cats and stuff, giving them a shout out. You know, they're going to be doing things out overseas as well, and it's all about, you know, like going where the demand is, you know, basically. So like, you know, a lot of those cats, like I said, overseas, a lot of people don't realize, from Paris, they're all about boom bap hip hop. They're all about that. And I'm pretty sure that they do dig the new stuff now, but you have a lot of loyalists. You have a lot of cats that really love that era, and it's gold. It's a gold mine.
I found that, I'm not sure if you've ever seen a show called Colors. It's a UK YouTube brand, and a lot of the artists that they have on there would be considered, I guess, over here, underground artists. But the sound that they have is more or less something that was done 90s, but the people who are doing it are young. And the sound that they create is for sure something that they heard their parents listen to years ago. And it's without a doubt that for some odd reason, overseas loves what was done and tries to keep it going. And I'm seeing a lot of these kids in England definitely doing it. I mean, I'm just speaking about England, but I'm sure, like you said, France and other places, they have artists just doing the same thing that was already done. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think that is because like at one point here in the States, it was like a logistic competition. But we had the sound in New York. That's where it started. This is the birthplace of hip hop. And then you had like other guys like on the East, I mean the West Coast doing their thing. And then you had guys in the Midwest doing their thing. Then you had the Southern guys that was doing their thing. And it was like a competition. And then it got to a point, and this is the truth, and it might put a frown on a lot of people's faces. It got dumbed down. It got dumbed down actually when it went to the South. I hate to say that. I hate to say that. But what happened was Southern people aren't as articulate in English language. They do what they do. They do what they do, and it comes out that way. You know what I'm saying? And then everybody jumped on that Southern slang, and and that's the broken English. Basically, it's just broken English.
Okay.
And once that happened and stuff, it became they solidified it because what they did was the good thing that the Southern artists did at that time was they unified. They got together. There wasn't like any kind of competition. Like, I'm gonna help you out over here. I'm gonna help you out over here. That never was the case, in the northern states. It was always a competition. Mm-hmm. It was always, me against you. Mm-hmm. So once that happened and that big wave of music came, the market changed. And then once that changed, like people started either rolling with that sound or disappearing altogether. And I think that's what happened, where we didn't keep that boom bap sound in New York going. We didn't do that. That was New York's fault. We let that go. It was cats jumping to Miami all of a sudden doing shit from New York. You know what I'm saying? And doing all this other stuff. And if we would have, kept that sound, and in hip hop in general, if you think about it, if we would have kept hip hop, we would have we would have like artists on currency now, because like, how much money we let slip through our hands because the legislature said that, gangster rap is bad and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. Some of it was, mm-hmm. Yes, but they was just like putting a overall blanket on all hip hop. And then we had people who didn't look like us infiltrate the game. And then they monopolized the game, and then they changed the game. So, for their benefit. So like they looked at it as a commodity at that point, where before it was all about artistic value. We should have kept boom bap alive. That's why I feel like, I'm the Wynton Marsalis of this shit. I'm trying to keep boom bap alive, like he's keeping jazz alive. I'm trying to keep boom bap alive because that was where it all started. That's where, like if it wasn't for boom bap, there wouldn't have been a Tupac. It wouldn't have been no, Wu-Tang Clan. It wouldn't have been none of those cats. And for some reason, we just let that sound, we just like put it away. And then people started doing their own thing, and then that became popular. And then we lost our identity.
When did you think New York dropped the ball?
I would say, I say about around the time that, you had cats that was really blowing up in the South. You had cats like the Goody Mob, and you had cats like, you had Master P. You had all these other guys that was really, making a lot of money off of this shit. And then, we just kind of like, we just like try to do what they did at a certain point. We try to, like capitalize off of that sound because that sound started making money. You had like Ludacris, you had all these other guys doing their thing out there in Atlanta. And then you had, cats, and I don't want to say their names, but you had cats just like jumping ship.
Right. Cats
from New York moving down to Atlanta doing some shit. You know what I'm saying? Not even trying to, preserve this sound that we had. You know what I mean? And it was heavy hitters doing that shit. So when the heavy hitters leave and shit, then the lesser guys gonna say, look, they leaving, they making money, I'm gonna follow suit. And then at one point, New York became a ghost town. Mm-hmm. It became a ghost town. And we lost our identity. So I say late 90, 2000 is when we dropped the ball.
Okay. What's next? What's going to happen next?
What's next is, like I said, we got this album that I'm working on, Euphoria. I lost my mother last year, and that kind of, put the brakes on things. It would have been released already, but that kind of put the brakes on things. But now we're starting back up. We're doing that. I'm going to be doing shows. I'm going to be, and my shows is like this, like with boom bap, I'm trying to take it to another level. You don't see cats playing instruments while they rapping. You don't see that shit, and that's what I do. I'm a more musician, first, because like I said, I've always played piano, and like I'm incorporating live shows where I, incorporate live, instrumentation and be a lyricist at the same time, and that's like kind of like a roots thing. But like, it's going to be like, the stuff that, that isn't, so-called commercial, but it's going to be stuff that I want to do. It's going to be stuff that's black positive, you know what I'm saying? And it's all about, dropping science. It's all about subliminal messages, because Big Brother's always watching and you're on their platform.
For sure. Where can you be found on the interwebs?
You can go online. I have a YouTube channel, Decade the Mad Imperial. Also I have a Facebook that you can check me out on. Also, I have an online store where I sell my music and merchandise. madmadigan.shopify.com. You can go there and you can get whatever. You can go to Hip Hop Enterprise Big Cartel, and you can go get stuff over there from Hip Hop Enterprise. So if you go to those links and stuff like that, it'll open up, many other avenues where you can get my stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it.
Speakers, right? AFA, Chris Rock, B Danger. Decade in the wicked. We transcend shit. Fuck all that other shit, kid. Fuck that trap. Elevation. Corn niggas. Yeah. Check it for the level for your motherfucking heart, yo. This is art. Wait. Better late than never. My endeavor, yo. I'm the type of clever. Look. Yeah. This is what I'm doing. Listen to me spewing, Milwaukee brewing, look at 100%. I'm going off the head, that's what I said, the funky dread, yo, you better off dead. Come on, like King Lear, off with your head, look. Yeah, man, I'm coming from the cypher, yo, we're in the ghetto like that. Hitting like a poisonous snake, I mean the viper, yo, I mean the boa. Yo, I got the mower, you the grass, like the